The silk petals of white orchids trembled under the ceiling fans as 32-year-old Jennifer Martinez stood frozen in the doorway of the bridal suite, her champagne flute slipping from her fingers and shattering against the marble floor in slow motion, the sound barely registering above the roaring in her ears as she watched her maid of honor and supposed best friend of 14 years, Ashley Thompson, locked in an embrace with Jennifer's fiancé, Michael Davies, just 3 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. Their bodies pressed together in a way that left absolutely no room for innocent interpretation or plausible excuses about accidental closeness or misunderstood gestures of friendly affection between people who were supposed to be celebrating Jennifer's happiness rather than destroying it in the most devastating betrayal imaginable. Hey there, I'm Tina, and I need you to settle in, because what I'm about to share with you today is one of those gut-wrenching stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust, friendship, and the people we choose to stand beside us during life's biggest moments. Jennifer's story is going to take you through every emotion you can imagine, from the highest peaks of wedding day excitement to the darkest valleys of betrayal and heartbreak. And if you've ever wondered whether you really know the people closest to you, or how you would handle discovering that your entire reality was built on lies and deception, this story is going to hit you right in the chest and possibly even help you recognize warning signs in your own relationships that you might have been ignoring. You're going to want to hear every single detail of how one bride's perfect day turned into a nightmare she never saw coming. So please take just a quick moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, because we bring you authentic stories about real people navigating the messiest and most painful situations with a strength that will absolutely inspire you in ways you never expected. And trust me when I say this story has twists you won't believe. Jennifer had spent the last 7 years building a successful career as a physical therapist in Austin, Texas, working with patients recovering from sports injuries and accidents that had disrupted their lives, helping them regain strength and mobility while also providing emotional support through the difficult rehabilitation process that required patience, dedication, and genuine compassion for people struggling to reclaim their independence after trauma or injury. Her relationship with Michael Davies had begun 5 years earlier, when they met at a charity marathon where Jennifer was volunteering at the medical tent, treating runners with muscle cramps and dehydration, while Michael was running his first half marathon to raise money for childhood cancer research, demonstrating a caring nature that extended beyond his demanding work as an architect, designing sustainable housing projects for low-income communities throughout Central Texas. Their courtship had unfolded naturally over long dinners, discussing their shared passion for environmental conservation, weekend hiking trips through the Texas Hill Country, where they explored state parks and talked about their dreams of eventually buying land where they could build an eco-friendly home with solar panels and rainwater collection systems, and quiet evenings cooking together in Jennifer's apartment while listening to jazz music and planning future adventures that would take them to Costa Rica for wildlife conservation volunteering and Iceland to witness the northern lights in person. Michael had proposed 3 years into their relationship during a camping trip to Big Bend National Park that he had planned with input from Ashley, who had helped him understand that Jennifer would appreciate something intimate and meaningful rather than a flashy public display that might make her uncomfortable or put her in the awkward position of having to respond to such an important question in front of strangers who would be watching and filming on their phones. The engagement ring he had designed with a local jeweler featured an emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds in a nature-inspired setting that reflected Jennifer's love of the outdoors and her May birthstone, showing that he had been paying careful attention to her preferences during countless conversations about what she valued and found beautiful, rather than simply defaulting to conventional diamond solitaires that every other couple seemed to choose without any personal meaning or thoughtfulness behind the selection. Ashley had been present for the proposal planning sessions, offering suggestions and enthusiasm that Jennifer later realized should have raised red flags about the inappropriate level of involvement and emotional intimacy between her best friend and her fiancé. Though at the time, Jennifer had simply felt grateful to have two people she loved working together to create a special moment that would mark the beginning of her married life. The wedding planning process had consumed 20 months of Jennifer's life, with Ashley positioned as the maid of honor, who was supposedly there to support and assist with everything from venue selection to bridesmaid dress fittings, creating what Jennifer believed was a wonderful collaboration between best friends as they navigated the complicated logistics and emotional challenges of planning a celebration that would bring together Jennifer's large Mexican-American family with Michael's smaller New England clan in ways that honored both cultural traditions while creating something uniquely reflective of Jennifer and Michael's relationship and values. Ashley had accompanied Jennifer to countless appointments with florists, caterers, photographers, and bakers, offering opinions and suggestions that Jennifer had trusted implicitly because they had been best friends since college, and Ashley had always been someone Jennifer could count on for honest feedback and genuine support. Through every major life transition, from graduation to career changes to family losses that had tested Jennifer's resilience and faith in the goodness of people. The friendship between Jennifer and Ashley had its roots in their freshman year at the University of Texas, where they had been randomly assigned as roommates in a cramped dormitory and had bonded over late-night study sessions, shared struggles with homesickness, and a mutual love of indie music and vintage clothing that led them to spend countless Saturday afternoons exploring thrift stores and attending local concerts in venues that smelled like beer and cigarette smoke while they danced and sang along to bands that would later become famous, but were then just scrappy kids trying to make it in the Austin music scene. Through 4 years of college and the 8 years that followed, Jennifer and Ashley had been constants in each other's lives, celebrating successes and supporting each other through breakups, job rejections, family drama, and all the normal challenges of navigating young adulthood in a world that often felt overwhelming and unpredictable. Ashley had been the person Jennifer called first when Michael proposed, squealing with excitement and immediately beginning to plan the engagement party and discuss wedding details before Jennifer had even told her own parents the news, inserting herself into the center of Jennifer's happiest moment in ways that felt natural and appropriate at the time, but would later reveal themselves as the first signs of boundary violations and inappropriate possessiveness that Jennifer had been too trusting and naive to recognize as warning signals that something was fundamentally wrong with the dynamics unfolding between the three of them. The engagement party that Ashley had insisted on hosting at her apartment had been lovely, with decorations Jennifer loved and a guest list that included all their mutual friends from college, along with newer acquaintances from their professional lives, creating an atmosphere of celebration and joy that masked whatever darker feelings and intentions Ashley was harboring beneath her enthusiastic performance of supportive best friend, excited about her closest companion, finding love and happiness. The months of wedding planning had involved weekly meetings between Jennifer and Ashley, with Michael occasionally joining them to weigh in on major decisions, but generally trusting Jennifer's vision for their wedding day and deferring to her preferences. About everything from the ceremony location to the reception playlist, which Jennifer appreciated as a sign of his respect for her opinions and his recognition that she had stronger feelings about many of the aesthetic and logistical details than he did as someone who cared more about the marriage than the wedding itself. Those planning sessions had often stretched late into the evening, with Ashley staying at Jennifer's apartment long after they had finished discussing centerpiece options or invitation wording, lingering over wine and conversation in ways that Jennifer now recognized as opportunities for Ashley to pump her for information about Jennifer's relationship with Michael, asking probing questions about their intimate life and any conflicts or struggles they were experiencing that Ashley could potentially exploit. The bridal shower that Ashley had organized 6 weeks before the wedding had been an elaborate affair held at an upscale restaurant with elegant decorations in Jennifer's chosen colors of sage green and cream, with games and gifts and heartfelt toasts that had moved Jennifer to tears of gratitude for having such thoughtful friends and family surrounding her as she prepared to enter this new chapter of her life with a partner she loved and trusted completely. Ashley's toast at the shower had been particularly touching, speaking about their 14 years of friendship and how Jennifer deserved all the happiness in the world with a man who truly appreciated her kindness, intelligence, and beauty, Words that now felt like poisonous lies designed to maintain Ashley's cover while she was already actively working to destroy Jennifer's relationship and steal the life that Jennifer had built with Michael through 5 years of shared experiences and mutual support. The bachelorette party weekend in New Orleans, just 3 weeks before the wedding, had been Ashley's gift to Jennifer, with Ashley handling all the planning and coordinating with the other bridesmaids to create an itinerary that included spa treatments, fancy dinners, jazz clubs, and silly tourist activities that allowed Jennifer to relax and celebrate with her closest female friends before the intensity of the final wedding preparations would consume every spare moment. The trip had been wonderful, filled with laughter and bonding, and the kind of carefree fun that Jennifer rarely allowed herself given her demanding work schedule and the stress of managing wedding logistics while also maintaining her regular life responsibilities. And she had returned to Austin feeling refreshed and grateful and completely unaware that while she was away celebrating her upcoming marriage, Ashley had been texting Michael constantly under the guise of coordinating wedding details, but actually building an emotional and physical connection that would explode into Jennifer's consciousness in the most painful way imaginable. You know, I want to pause right here because I can feel the weight of what's coming. And I need you to understand that you're in a safe space where we talk about the really hard truths about relationships and betrayal and the ways that people we trust can completely blindside us with actions we never imagined they were capable of committing. If you're watching this and thinking about your own friendships or wondering whether you could recognize the signs if someone close to you was living a double life behind your back, please take just a second to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications because you are part of this family now. This community, where we share the messy and devastating realities of human relationships without sugarcoating or pretending that everyone always has good intentions. I really want to hear from you in the comments about your own experiences with betrayal, or times when you discovered that someone you trusted was not who you thought they were. And please let me know what other stories you want me to share with this incredible community we're building together. Because your voice matters here, and your experiences could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today to feel less alone in their own pain. The final week before the wedding had been a blur of activity with Jennifer, taking time off from work to handle last-minute details and welcome out-of-town guests who were arriving early to explore Austin before the Saturday ceremony and reception at a historic mansion that had been converted into an event space overlooking Lady Bird Lake, with views of the downtown skyline and the Congress Avenue Bridge, where thousands of bats emerged each evening in a spectacular natural display that Jennifer had always loved showing to visitors from other parts of the country. Her parents had arrived from San Antonio, along with her 3 siblings and their families, filling Jennifer's apartment with noise and laughter and the comfort of being surrounded by people who had known and loved her since birth, providing support and assistance with all the small tasks and errands that multiplied exponentially in those final days before a major life event. Michael had seemed slightly distant during that final week, which Jennifer had attributed to work stress, combined with his natural tendency toward introversion and his need for quiet time to recharge after social interactions with large groups of people, never suspecting that his preoccupation and distraction were actually related to guilt and conflict about whatever inappropriate relationship had developed between him and Ashley behind Jennifer's trusting and unsuspecting back. The rehearsal dinner on Friday evening had gone smoothly, with both families mingling comfortably despite their different backgrounds and styles, sharing stories and toasts and creating connections that would theoretically bind them together as extended family once the wedding made everything official the following day. Though Jennifer would later look back at photos from that evening and wonder whether Michael and Ashley's body language or interactions revealed anything suspicious that she had missed in the moment because she was too busy playing hostess and ensuring everyone felt welcomed and included. The morning of the wedding had begun peacefully in the luxury hotel suite that Jennifer's parents had booked for her and the bridesmaids, with mimosas and fruit platters and a professional hair and makeup team arriving promptly at 7 in the morning to begin the lengthy process of transforming Jennifer and her 5 bridesmaids into camera-ready versions of themselves for the noon ceremony that would mark the official beginning of Jennifer's married life. Ashley had been there in the suite, laughing and chatting with the other bridesmaids, helping Jennifer's younger sister with her dress zipper, taking photos and videos for social media, performing the role of devoted best friend and maid of honor with such convincing authenticity that Jennifer had no reason to suspect that within hours, this same person would reveal herself as a traitor and homewrecker who had been systematically destroying Jennifer's relationship while pretending to celebrate and support it. The champagne toast that Ashley had proposed around 9 in the morning had been sweet and sentimental, with Ashley expressing her love for Jennifer and her excitement about witnessing Jennifer marry someone who supposedly made her so happy. Words that Jennifer had accepted at face value without recognizing them as manipulative performance art designed to maintain Ashley's innocent facade while she waited for an opportunity to either continue her affair with Michael or possibly even confess everything and blow up the wedding in a dramatic revelation that would center Ashley's desires and needs above Jennifer's happiness and well-being. The photographer who had been hired to document the getting ready process had captured images of Jennifer and Ashley hugging after the toast, both of them with tears in their eyes, creating what should have been beautiful memories of female friendship and support, but instead became painful evidence of how completely Jennifer had been deceived by someone she had trusted with her deepest secrets and vulnerabilities. The wedding dress that Jennifer had chosen after months of shopping was a custom creation by a local designer who specialized in romantic vintage-inspired gowns, featuring delicate lace sleeves, a fitted bodice with pearl buttons down the back, and a flowing skirt that moved beautifully when Jennifer walked, but still had enough structure to photograph well from all angles and withstand hours of wearing without becoming wrinkled or uncomfortable. The ivory color had been chosen deliberately to complement Jennifer's warm skin tone and dark hair, while also nodding to her Mexican heritage, where bright white was less traditional than softer shades that worked better with the natural coloring of Latina brides, though she had avoided bold colors that might have been too unconventional for Michael's more conservative New England family, who were already adjusting to cultural differences around food, music, and celebration styles that were unfamiliar to them. The moment when Jennifer's mother helped her into the dress just after 10 in the morning had been emotional and sacred, with Jennifer's mother offering blessings in Spanish and sharing stories about her own wedding day 35 years earlier in a small church in Guadalajara before the family had immigrated to Texas, seeking better opportunities and the kind of life that would eventually allow Jennifer to attend university and build a professional career and marry someone she chose out of love rather than family arrangement or economic necessity. The tears that Jennifer had cried while standing in front of the mirror in her completed wedding look were supposed to be tears of pure joy and anticipation, not the first of many tears she would cry that day as her life imploded around her in ways she could never have predicted or prepared for, despite her generally cautious and thoughtful approach to major decisions and relationships. Ashley had left the bridal suite around 10:30, claiming she needed to check on some last-minute details at the venue and ensure that the flowers had been delivered correctly and arranged according to the specifications Jennifer had provided during her final walkthrough 3 days earlier, an excuse that had seemed perfectly reasonable and even thoughtful at the time, but was actually a cover for Ashley to meet up with Michael at the venue under circumstances where they could be alone together without immediate risk of discovery. The other bridesmaids had continued helping with final touches to hair and makeup, painting nails, adjusting jewelry, and generally creating the kind of supportive female bonding atmosphere that should characterize the hours before a woman gets married, completely unaware that the maid of honor they assumed was attending to wedding logistics was actually engaged in activities that would soon detonate Jennifer's entire life like a bomb, destroying everything she had spent 5 years building with Michael. The text message that Jennifer had received from Ashley around 11 saying that she was still at the venue and that Jennifer should come over early because there was something important Ashley needed to discuss with her before the ceremony had created a small flutter of anxiety in Jennifer's chest, a premonition that something was wrong. even though Ashley's message had been phrased casually, as though whatever needed discussion was probably just a minor issue with decorations or timing, rather than the nuclear revelation that was actually waiting for Jennifer when she arrived at the mansion in her wedding dress an hour before guests were scheduled to begin arriving for the noon ceremony. Jennifer had convinced her mother and sisters to wait at the hotel, insisting that she wanted to handle whatever minor crisis Ashley had encountered without creating unnecessary stress for her family members who had already done so much to support the wedding planning process and deserved to simply show up as guests rather than being pulled into last-minute problem-solving. A decision that Jennifer would later recognize as both blessing and curse, because it meant she faced the upcoming devastation alone without immediate family support, but also that her mother and sisters were spared the trauma of witnessing the initial discovery and confrontation. The hired car service that transported Jennifer from the hotel to the venue had taken only 15 minutes, with Jennifer sitting carefully in the back seat, trying not to wrinkle her dress, while simultaneously feeling that growing sense of unease that something was very wrong, despite having no logical reason to suspect that her wedding day was about to become the worst day of her life instead of the best. The historic mansion that served as the venue was gorgeous in the late morning light, with the grounds professionally landscaped and decorated according to Jennifer's specifications, with sage green ribbons and cream roses, creating an elegant and romantic atmosphere that should have filled Jennifer with excitement and joy, rather than the inexplicable dread that was settling into her stomach as she walked through the main entrance and headed toward the bridal suite where Ashley had said she would be waiting. The venue coordinator had greeted Jennifer warmly and commented on how beautiful she looked, completely unaware of the catastrophe that was unfolding upstairs in one of the preparation rooms where Michael and Ashley had apparently assumed they would have privacy and time together before Jennifer arrived, miscalculating in ways that would expose their betrayal in the most dramatic and painful manner possible. The door to the bridal suite had been slightly ajar, which later seemed like the universe's way of ensuring that Jennifer would discover the truth, rather than remaining ignorant and marrying someone who was actively cheating on her with her supposed best friend. Though in the moment, Jennifer had simply pushed the door open while calling Ashley's name to let her know that she had arrived to discuss whatever important matter Ashley had mentioned in her text message. The scene that Jennifer encountered when she stepped into that room has been burned into her memory with photographic clarity, every detail preserved in excruciating sharpness, from the way Michael's suit jacket was draped over a chair, to the half-empty champagne bottle on the side table, to the guilty shock that flooded both Michael and Ashley's faces as they jumped apart and tried to formulate explanations or excuses that might somehow make sense of what Jennifer was witnessing with her own eyes. The champagne flute that had been in Jennifer's hand, brought from the hotel suite where the bridesmaids had been celebrating all morning, fell to the marble floor and shattered into dozens of pieces that scattered across the room like the fragments of Jennifer's trust, and the future she had imagined was just hours away from becoming reality. The sound of breaking glass seeming to echo through the mansion and mark the precise moment when everything Jennifer believed about her life and relationships revealed itself as illusion and lies built on months or possibly years of deception that she had been too trusting or too naive to detect, despite whatever warning signs must have existed along the way. The silence that followed the breaking glass was suffocating, with all three of them frozen in a horrible tableau that would replay in Jennifer's mind for months afterward whenever she closed her eyes or let her guard down enough to stop actively pushing the memories away into some mental compartment where she wouldn't have to constantly confront the magnitude of what had been done to her. Ashley had been the first to speak, her voice coming out in a breathless rush of words, attempting to explain or minimize or somehow reframe what Jennifer had just witnessed into something less devastating than the obvious affair that had been happening behind Jennifer's back for who knows how long, while Ashley pretended to be the devoted best friend helping Jennifer plan the wedding that was now revealed as a complete farce. The excuses that tumbled from Ashley's mouth were pathetic and insulting, claiming that what Jennifer had seen was just a moment of weakness and confusion, that nothing had really happened between her and Michael, that they had just been stressed about the wedding and had drunk too much champagne while discussing some problem with the seating arrangements, and had somehow ended up in an embrace that looked worse than it actually was. Lies that were so transparent and ridiculous that they only made Jennifer angrier than she had already been in those first shocking moments of discovery. My beautiful friends, I need you to really sit with what Jennifer is experiencing right now, because this moment represents every person's worst nightmare about trust and betrayal, and the people we choose to love and rely on during life's most vulnerable moments. If you have been following this story and feeling your own heart breaking for Jennifer as she stands there in her wedding dress, confronting the two people who were supposed to love and support her more than anyone else in the world, please take a moment right now to subscribe to our channel and join this amazing community where we share real stories about real pain and real strength. I genuinely want to hear your experiences in the comments about times when you discovered someone's true character in a moment of crisis. And please share what other topics you would like me to cover, because your input shapes the content we create for this incredible family we are building together. And I promise you that what happens next in Jennifer's story is going to give you chills, and maybe even restore some of your faith in human resilience and dignity when everything seems completely hopeless and destroyed. Michael had remained silent during Ashley's initial pathetic attempts at explanation, his face drained of color and his eyes unable to meet Jennifer's, as he stood there in his wedding suit looking like a stranger rather than the man Jennifer had spent 5 years believing she knew completely. The man she had trusted with her body and heart and future in ways that now felt horrifying and humiliating, given how spectacularly he had violated that trust while allowing Jennifer to continue planning their wedding and imagining their life together as though his commitment and love were real rather than performance and lies. When Michael finally did speak, his words were barely audible and completely inadequate to the enormity of what he had done, offering weak apologies and claims that he loved Jennifer and had made a terrible mistake, and that this thing with Ashley didn't mean anything and had only happened a few times, and he wanted to make it right and still marry Jennifer if she could find it in her heart to forgive him. Words that revealed both his profound selfishness and his complete failure to understand that Jennifer would never marry someone who had been carrying on an affair with her best friend while pretending to be excited about their wedding. The rage that filled Jennifer in those moments was unlike anything she had experienced in her entire life. A white-hot fury that made her hands shake and her voice come out in a barely controlled scream as she told both Michael and Ashley exactly what she thought of their betrayal and their pathetic attempts to minimize or excuse behavior that was indefensible and unforgivable, regardless of what explanation or context they tried to provide. The words that poured from Jennifer's mouth surprised even her with their harshness and precision, cutting through all the lies and excuses to expose the fundamental selfishness and cruelty of two people who had claimed to love her while actively working to destroy her happiness and security, demonstrating that Jennifer possessed reserves of strength and clarity that she hadn't known existed until this moment, demanded that she access them or be completely destroyed by the weight of betrayal and humiliation. The wedding coordinator had appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of raised voices and breaking glass, taking in the scene and immediately understanding that whatever crisis was unfolding was far more serious than any typical wedding day drama about flowers or timing or family seating arrangements that she normally helped couples navigate in the hours before their ceremonies. Jennifer had turned to the coordinator and stated clearly and firmly that the wedding was canceled, that she needed the coordinator to notify all the guests who would begin arriving in less than 30 minutes that the ceremony would not be taking place, and that Jennifer apologized for any inconvenience. But there would be no marriage happening today or ever between her and Michael Davies. Words that felt both empowering and devastating as Jennifer spoke them aloud and made the destruction of her life official rather than just an internal realization that she was still processing and trying to comprehend. Ashley had attempted to approach Jennifer with hands outstretched and more excuses forming on her lips, but Jennifer had backed away sharply and told Ashley to never speak to her again, to never contact her or attempt to explain or apologize because their friendship was permanently destroyed, and nothing Ashley could say would ever repair the damage or make Jennifer see her as anything other than a liar and betrayer who had systematically worked to steal Jennifer's fiancé while pretending to help plan their wedding. The look of shock and hurt on Ashley's face at Jennifer's rejection would have been satisfying if Jennifer had been capable of feeling anything other than overwhelming pain and disbelief at that particular moment. Though later she would take some grim comfort in the memory of Ashley realizing that her actions had consequences and that Jennifer was not going to forgive or minimize or pretend that what had happened was some small misunderstanding rather than a fundamental betrayal of trust and loyalty. The photographers and videographers who had been setting up equipment around the venue had to be notified that their services would not be needed, along with the caterers who had been preparing the elaborate fusion menu combining Jennifer's Mexican heritage with contemporary Austin cuisine, the florist who had spent days creating arrangements to Jennifer's specifications, the DJ who had curated playlists designed to keep guests dancing through the evening reception, and all the other vendors who had been contracted to provide services for a wedding that was now canceled just minutes before it was scheduled to begin. The coordinator had handled these notifications with professional efficiency while Jennifer stood in the bridal suite trying to process what had just happened and figure out what she was supposed to do next. Still wearing her wedding dress and veil, like some kind of horrible costume that now symbolized her stupidity and naivety rather than the joyful beginning of married life. Jennifer's first call had been to her mother, her voice breaking as she tried to explain that the wedding was canceled and that she needed her family to come to the venue immediately because Michael had been having an affair with Ashley and Jennifer had discovered them together, and everything was destroyed and she didn't know what to do or how to handle the practical logistics of canceling a wedding with 200 guests who were probably already leaving their hotels and getting into cars to drive to the ceremony. Her mother's response had been immediate and fierce. Protective anger combined with promises that Jennifer would be okay and that the family would handle everything and that Jennifer should just stay where she was and wait for them to arrive. Maternal reassurance that penetrated some of Jennifer's shock and reminded her that she was not alone, even though she felt completely isolated and abandoned in that moment of devastating betrayal. The guests who had begun arriving at the venue were met by the wedding coordinator and Jennifer's family members who had rushed over from the hotel, being informed quietly and discreetly that the ceremony had been canceled due to unforeseen circumstances and that Jennifer apologized for any inconvenience or confusion, but appreciated their understanding and support during this difficult time. Carefully worded explanations that avoided specific details about Michael's infidelity and Ashley's betrayal, while still making clear that the cancellation was permanent and serious rather than a temporary delay or minor issue that might be resolved. With some discussion and compromise, Michael had attempted to follow Jennifer when she left the bridal suite with her mother and sisters surrounding her like protective shields, calling her name and begging for a chance to explain or discuss what had happened. But Jennifer's father and brothers had intercepted him with expressions that made clear he should not pursue Jennifer further if he valued his physical safety, creating a human barrier between the woman whose life Michael had destroyed and the man who had proven himself unworthy of her love and trust through actions that could never be undone or forgotten, regardless of how sorry he claimed to be or how much he insisted that Jennifer was the one he truly loved. The humiliation of having to cancel her wedding just minutes before it was supposed to begin was compounded by the knowledge that 200 guests would know something terrible had happened, even if they didn't know the specific details about Michael's affair with the maid of honor, creating gossip and speculation that would follow Jennifer for months as people whispered about what could possibly have caused such a dramatic last-minute cancellation. Ashley had apparently left the venue quickly after the confrontation, either driven away by guilt and shame or simply recognizing that her presence would only make an already impossible situation worse for everyone involved, disappearing without attempting to speak with any of the other bridesmaids or guests who had considered her a friend and would soon learn about her role in destroying Jennifer's wedding and betraying the trust of someone who had treated her like family for 14 years. The other bridesmaids, who had been waiting at the hotel for their cue to come to the venue for photos, were shocked and devastated when they learned what Ashley had done, expressing disbelief that someone they had known and liked could be capable of such calculated cruelty and deception, offering Jennifer their support and loyalty, while also grappling with their own feelings of betrayal since they had spent the morning celebrating with Ashley and had no idea she was hiding such a massive secret. The wedding dress that Jennifer had been so excited to wear for approximately 3 hours total became a painful reminder of the day her life imploded, hanging in her closet for weeks afterward because she couldn't bring herself to deal with it, but also couldn't look at it without feeling physically ill at the memories of standing in the bridal suite in that beautiful gown while confronting her fiancé and best friend in the middle of their affair. Her mother had eventually taken the dress away and either donated it or sold it or simply disposed of it. Jennifer never asked and didn't want to know, grateful to have the visual reminder removed from her space, even though the emotional and psychological reminders would take much longer to fade and would probably never completely disappear, no matter how much time passed or how much healing work Jennifer did. The aftermath of the canceled wedding involved countless difficult tasks, from notifying guests who hadn't been at the venue about the cancellation to dealing with vendors who had contracts and policies about refunds and cancellations, to fielding questions from concerned friends and relatives who wanted to understand what had happened and offer support, even though their concern and curiosity often felt more exhausting than helpful. Jennifer's parents had handled most of the practical logistics, while Jennifer spent several days essentially catatonic with grief and shock, unable to eat or sleep or engage in normal conversation as she processed the magnitude of what Michael and Ashley had done and tried to understand how she had missed the signs that must have existed throughout the months they were carrying on their affair while pretending everything was normal. The text messages and calls that flooded Jennifer's phone in the days after the canceled wedding included pathetic attempts from both Michael and Ashley to apologize or explain. Messages that Jennifer deleted without reading after the first few because nothing they could say would change what had happened or make her feel any differently about their betrayal, and also because she recognized that engaging with their excuses and self-justifications would only prolong her pain and prevent her from beginning the difficult healing process that lay ahead. Michael had claimed in his messages that he loved Jennifer and that his thing with Ashley had been a mistake born from stress and confusion about the wedding. Explanations that were both insulting and ridiculous, given that affairs don't happen accidentally, and carrying on a sexual relationship with your fiancé's best friend requires deliberate choices and sustained deception that reveals fundamental character flaws rather than momentary weakness. Ashley's messages had been even more infuriating, filled with claims that she had feelings for Michael that she couldn't control, and that she had never meant to hurt Jennifer, and that maybe this had happened for a reason. Because if Michael could be tempted away, then maybe he wasn't the right person for Jennifer anyway. Twisted logic that attempted to reframe Ashley's betrayal as somehow beneficial to Jennifer, or evidence that Ashley had actually been protecting her friend from marrying the wrong person. Mental gymnastics that revealed Ashley's complete inability to take responsibility for her actions, or acknowledge the harm she had deliberately caused through months of lying and scheming. Have you ever had someone try to justify their betrayal by claiming they were actually doing you a favor, or that you should be grateful they revealed problems in your relationship, as though their selfish actions were motivated by concern for your well-being rather than by their own desires and complete disregard for your feelings? Jennifer's experience with Ashley's pathetic attempts to reframe her betrayal as somehow helpful or necessary shows us how people will twist reality to avoid confronting their own cruelty and selfishness, creating narratives that center their own needs and minimize the harm they've caused to others. When have you encountered someone who couldn't simply admit they were wrong and apologize without qualifications or excuses? How did you find the strength to walk away from people who demonstrated through their actions that they valued their own comfort over your dignity and happiness? The first few weeks after the canceled wedding were the darkest period of Jennifer's life, with days blending together in a fog of grief and anger and confusion as she tried to understand how she had been so completely deceived by the two people she had trusted most in the world, questioning her own judgment and intuition, while also recognizing that no amount of vigilance or suspicion could have protected her from people who were determined to lie and hide their true intentions behind convincing performances of loyalty and love. Her work as a physical therapist required her to be emotionally present and supportive with patients who were dealing with their own pain and struggles, creating an exhausting situation where Jennifer had to compartmentalize her personal devastation and show up professionally even when she felt barely capable of getting out of bed or functioning at the most basic level of self-care and daily routines. The support system that surrounded Jennifer during this terrible time included her family, who had canceled their return flights to San Antonio and stayed in Austin for 2 weeks to help Jennifer through the initial crisis. Her colleagues at the physical therapy clinic, who covered some of her patient load when she needed time off to process her grief. And a few close friends from college who weren't part of the wedding party and therefore hadn't been as close to Ashley or as blindsided by her betrayal as the bridesmaids who were grappling with their own feelings of having been deceived and used. The therapist that Jennifer began seeing weekly specialized in relationship trauma and betrayal, providing professional support and frameworks for processing what had happened in ways that didn't leave Jennifer trapped in cycles of self-blame or obsessive rumination about all the ways she might have detected or prevented the affair if she had been more careful or less trusting. The discovery that Michael and Ashley's affair had been going on for at least 4 months, possibly longer, came through reviewing text messages and social media interactions that Jennifer forced herself to examine despite how painful the evidence was. Finding conversations and references that made clear the physical relationship had been ongoing throughout the final intense period of wedding planning, when Jennifer had been most stressed and vulnerable and relying heavily on Ashley's support and Michael's partnership to get through the complicated logistics and family dynamics. The realization that they had been having sex while Jennifer was at work or out of town, possibly even in Jennifer's own apartment or Michael's house, where Jennifer had spent countless nights believing she was safe and loved, added another layer of violation and disgust to the betrayal, contaminating spaces and memories that Jennifer had previously cherished. The decision to leave Austin entirely and start over somewhere new had not been easy, but Jennifer recognized that staying in a city where she might run into Michael or Ashley at any moment would prevent her from truly healing and moving forward, keeping her trapped in a cycle of anxiety and vigilance that would exhaust her emotionally and potentially damage her ability to build new relationships or trust new people. The job offer that came from a physical therapy clinic in Denver, Colorado, provided the perfect opportunity for a fresh start with a higher salary, a chance to specialize in pediatric rehabilitation, which had always interested her, and the appeal of living near mountains and outdoor recreation that would support Jennifer's healing process and give her positive activities to focus on instead of dwelling on the past and the people who had hurt her so profoundly. Contaminating spaces and memories that Jennifer had previously cherished as evidence of Michael's love and their shared life together that was supposed to culminate in marriage and family and decades of partnership built on mutual respect and honesty. The decision to leave Austin entirely and start over somewhere new had not been easy, but Jennifer recognized that staying in a city where she might run into Michael or Ashley at any moment would prevent her from truly healing and moving forward, keeping her trapped in a cycle of anxiety and vigilance that would exhaust her emotionally and potentially damage her ability to build new relationships or trust new people in ways that allowed for genuine connection and vulnerability. The job offer that came from a physical therapy clinic in Denver, Colorado, provided the perfect opportunity for a fresh start with a higher salary, a chance to specialize in pediatric rehabilitation, which had always interested her professionally, and the appeal of living near mountains and outdoor recreation opportunities that would support Jennifer's healing process and give her positive activities to focus on instead of dwelling endlessly on the past and the people who had hurt her so profoundly through their selfishness and deception. The process of packing up her Austin apartment and sorting through 5 years of accumulated possessions and memories involved countless painful decisions about what to keep and what to discard, with photographs and gifts from Michael going directly into trash bags, while other items that held no connection to the betrayal could be packed for the move to Colorado and her new life in a city where nobody knew about the canceled wedding or the humiliating circumstances that had brought Jennifer to this point of starting completely over at age 32. Her family had helped with the packing and moving logistics, providing both physical labor and emotional support as Jennifer dismantled the life she had built in Austin and prepared to relocate to a place where she knew nobody and would have to construct an entirely new social network and support system from scratch. A daunting prospect, but also strangely liberating in its promise of anonymity and fresh possibilities unburdened by her history. The goodbye dinner that Jennifer's closest Austin friends organized before her move was bittersweet, filled with tears and promises to stay in touch and reassurances that Jennifer was making the right decision and that she would heal and eventually find love again with someone who actually deserved her loyalty and trust. Words that Jennifer wanted to believe, even though in those dark days she couldn't imagine ever being willing to make herself vulnerable enough to fall in love again after experiencing such spectacular betrayal from people who had known her most intimate thoughts and fears and weaknesses. The friends who gathered for that farewell dinner explicitly excluded Ashley and expressed their own anger about what she had done, several of them sharing that they had already cut ties with Ashley completely and wanted nothing to do with someone capable of such calculated cruelty, disguised as friendship and support. The drive from Austin to Denver took Jennifer 2 full days with an overnight stop in New Mexico, giving her time alone with her thoughts as she watched the landscape gradually transform from Texas plains to high desert, to the Rocky Mountains rising dramatically against the western horizon like a physical manifestation of the new life and new perspectives she was hoping to find in Colorado. The solitude of those driving hours allowed Jennifer to process her grief and anger without having to perform strength or resilience for anyone else, crying freely when waves of pain and loss overwhelmed her, listening to music that expressed the complex emotions she was experiencing, and slowly beginning to imagine a future that might eventually include happiness and peace, even if she couldn't yet see the specific path that would lead her there from the devastation of her present circumstances. The apartment that Jennifer had rented sight unseen in Denver's Capitol Hill neighborhood turned out to be perfect for her needs. A sunny 1-bedroom unit in an older building with hardwood floors and large windows overlooking tree-lined streets where she could watch seasons change and life unfold in a city that had no connection to Michael or Ashley or the humiliating canceled wedding that had marked the end of Jennifer's Austin chapter. The process of furnishing the new apartment with mostly secondhand pieces from local thrift stores and estate sales became unexpectedly therapeutic, allowing Jennifer to create a space that reflected only her own taste and preferences without any input or influence from a partner or compromise with someone else's vision. Reclaiming her autonomy and individual identity after years of thinking in terms of what we wanted rather than what she alone valued and needed. The pediatric physical therapy clinic, where Jennifer began working, specialized in treating children with cerebral palsy, developmental delays, sports injuries, and recovery from accidents or surgeries, requiring patience, creativity, and genuine affection for young patients who were often frightened or frustrated by their physical limitations and the difficult work required to improve their mobility and strength. The job demanded Jennifer's full attention and emotional presence in ways that helped prevent her from spending entire days ruminating about the betrayal and loss she had experienced, while also providing daily reminders through her interactions with brave children and their devoted families that resilience and healing were possible even after trauma and setbacks that seemed insurmountable in the moment. Her colleagues at the Denver clinic were welcoming without being intrusive, accepting Jennifer's vague explanations about relocating for a fresh start without pressing for details about what exactly she was starting fresh from, allowing her to control how much personal information she shared and at what pace she built friendships with these new people who knew nothing about her past, and therefore had no preconceptions or pity coloring their interactions with her. The clinic director, a woman in her 50s named Dr. Sarah Chen, who had built the practice over 20 years, took particular interest in mentoring Jennifer and helping her develop specialized skills in pediatric rehabilitation techniques that would advance her career while also providing the intellectual challenge and sense of purpose that Jennifer needed to rebuild her sense of professional identity and competence. The hiking and outdoor activities that Jennifer had imagined would be part of her Colorado healing actually did become important elements of her recovery, with weekend excursions into the mountains providing both physical challenge and the kind of natural beauty and perspective that helped Jennifer remember there was a world much larger than her personal pain, and that life continued with stunning sunsets and wildflower meadows and snow-capped peaks, regardless of individual human dramas and heartbreaks. The hiking groups that Jennifer joined through Meetup and outdoor recreation organizations introduced her to other Denver transplants and outdoor enthusiasts who shared her love of nature and physical activity, creating low-pressure social connections that didn't require deep emotional vulnerability or extensive sharing of personal history, but still provided companionship and the gradual rebuilding of Jennifer's ability to trust and connect with new people. The first few months in Denver passed in a blur of work, hiking, exploring her new neighborhood, and slowly furnishing her apartment while deliberately avoiding serious reflection on the betrayal and canceled wedding, because Jennifer needed time to simply exist and function before she could safely process the deeper emotional wounds that Michael and Ashley had inflicted through their affair and lies. The therapy sessions she continued via video call with her Austin therapist provided structure and professional support as Jennifer navigated this transition period, helping her recognize that healing wasn't linear and that she might experience setbacks and difficult days even as she built a new life and created positive experiences and memories in Colorado that had nothing to do with the painful Austin chapter she was working to close. The moment when Jennifer realized she had gone an entire day without thinking about Michael or Ashley or the canceled wedding came approximately 4 months after her move to Denver, during a particularly challenging but rewarding day at the clinic where she had helped a 7-year-old girl with cerebral palsy take her first independent steps after months of intensive therapy and practice. Witnessing the joy on the child's face and her parents' tearful gratitude, and feeling a sense of professional pride and purpose that had nothing to do with romantic relationships or the validation Jennifer had once sought from a partner who had proven himself completely unworthy of her love and trust. That realization marked a turning point in Jennifer's healing, evidence that she was genuinely moving forward rather than simply surviving or going through the motions of daily life while remaining emotionally stuck in the trauma of betrayal. The social media accounts that Jennifer had deactivated immediately after the canceled wedding remained dormant for nearly 6 months until she felt ready to return to online spaces without constantly wondering whether Michael or Ashley might see her posts or try to contact her through those platforms. And even then, she created new accounts with enhanced privacy settings and carefully curated friend lists that excluded anyone who might maintain connections to her former fiancé or former best friend whose names she now avoided speaking aloud. The first anniversary of what should have been Jennifer's wedding day arrived on a crisp autumn Saturday in Denver, and rather than spending the day grieving or dwelling on what she had lost, Jennifer organized a celebration of her survival and growth with new friends she had made in Colorado, hosting a brunch at her apartment where she explicitly framed the gathering as marking 1 year since she had escaped a marriage that would have been built on lies and betrayal, reclaiming the date as a symbol of her strength and good judgment rather than a reminder of humiliation and loss. The friends who attended her anniversary of not getting married party brought champagne and flowers and shared their own stories of dodging relationship bullets and surviving betrayals, creating an atmosphere of female solidarity and mutual support that felt healing and empowering in ways that traditional sympathy or pity never could have achieved. The news that reached Jennifer through mutual acquaintances several months into her Denver life revealed that Michael and Ashley's relationship had predictably imploded within weeks of the canceled wedding, with Ashley apparently expecting that Michael would simply transfer his commitment from Jennifer to her, and being shocked when he instead expressed regret about losing Jennifer and showed no interest in building a serious relationship with the woman who had helped him destroy his engagement and wedding plans. The schadenfreude that Jennifer felt upon hearing about their breakup was petty but deeply satisfying. confirmation that relationships built on betrayal and deception rarely transform into healthy partnerships, and that karma sometimes does deliver appropriate consequences to people who hurt others through selfishness and lies. Though Jennifer recognized that her healing couldn't depend on their suffering, and that she needed to build her own happiness independent of what happened to the people who had betrayed her. The romantic interest that a colleague expressed in Jennifer about 8 months after her move to Denver caught her completely off guard, as she had convinced herself that she was nowhere near ready for dating or new relationships, and that she might need years of healing before she could trust anyone enough to become vulnerable in romantic ways again. The colleague, a fellow physical therapist named Marcus Williams, who specialized in sports medicine and worked part-time at Jennifer's clinic while also maintaining a private practice, had been friendly and respectful since Jennifer's arrival, but had waited until she seemed settled and stable before asking whether she might be interested in getting coffee outside of work, demonstrating the kind of patience and consideration for her emotional state that suggested he might actually be someone worth taking a chance on, despite Jennifer's understandable wariness about trusting new people with her heart. The coffee date that Jennifer nervously agreed to turned into a 3-hour conversation that ranged across topics from professional challenges and career goals to family backgrounds and personal values, with Marcus sharing his own history of a difficult divorce several years earlier that had taught him about the importance of honest communication and the damage that unspoken resentments and unmet expectations could inflict on even relationships that started with genuine love and good intentions. His willingness to be vulnerable about his own past pain and relationship failures helped Jennifer feel less alone in her experience of betrayal, and also created space for her to share some of what she had been through without feeling like she was dumping trauma on someone who would be overwhelmed or scared away by the intensity of her recent history. The decision to continue seeing Marcus casually while maintaining clear boundaries about the pace of their developing relationship reflected Jennifer's growth and her commitment to protecting herself, while also remaining open to the possibility that not everyone was like Michael and Ashley, that some people actually meant what they said and demonstrated through consistent actions over time that they could be trusted with vulnerability and emotional intimacy. Marcus seemed to understand Jennifer's need to move slowly and repeatedly demonstrated through his behavior that he respected her boundaries and was willing to earn her trust gradually, rather than expecting immediate emotional or physical intimacy just because they were attracted to each other and enjoyed spending time together. The comparison that Jennifer sometimes made between Marcus and Michael was inevitable, and often revealed how many red flags she had overlooked or minimized during her relationship with her former fiancé. Recognizing in retrospect that Michael had often been dismissive of her feelings, had made decisions without consulting her, had maintained inappropriate friendships with ex-girlfriends that should have concerned Jennifer more than they did at the time, and had shown patterns of dishonesty about small things that should have alerted her to his capacity for larger deceptions, like carrying on a months-long affair with her best friend. Marcus, by contrast, was consistently honest, even when admitting mistakes or limitations, included Jennifer in decisions that affected their relationship, maintained appropriate boundaries with his ex-wife with whom he co-parented 2 children, and demonstrated through thousands of small actions that he valued Jennifer's happiness and well-being as much as his own satisfaction and desires. The 18 months that Jennifer and Marcus dated before moving in together reflected their shared commitment to building a relationship on solid foundation of friendship, trust, and genuine compatibility, rather than rushing into cohabitation or engagement based on chemistry and optimism that hadn't been tested by time and challenges and the reality of seeing each other at their worst as well as their best. The decision to combine households felt exciting rather than terrifying, because Jennifer had seen Marcus handle stress, disappointment, conflict, and difficult family situations with integrity and emotional maturity that gave her confidence he wouldn't suddenly transform into someone unrecognizable once they made a deeper commitment. Unlike Michael, who had apparently been performing a false version of himself throughout their entire 5-year relationship, and had only revealed his true character through his affair with Ashley and his pathetic attempts to minimize and excuse his betrayal. The proposal that Marcus eventually made came 3 years after Jennifer's canceled wedding to Michael, during a quiet evening at home rather than an elaborate staged event, with Marcus simply expressing that he loved Jennifer and wanted to build a life with her, and asking whether she felt ready to get married again, despite the trauma she had experienced the last time she had planned a wedding. The ring he presented was a simple platinum band with a single diamond, elegant and understated in ways that reflected Jennifer's evolved preferences and her desire for authenticity over performance. And the private nature of the proposal demonstrated Marcus's understanding that Jennifer would appreciate intimacy over grand gestures that might trigger difficult memories of the elaborate wedding planning that had ended in such devastating betrayal and humiliation. The wedding that Jennifer and Marcus planned was deliberately small and low-key, with only immediate family members and closest friends attending a simple ceremony at a botanical garden in Denver, followed by dinner at a nice restaurant, creating an intimate celebration focused entirely on the commitment they were making to each other, rather than the kind of elaborate production that had characterized Jennifer's first wedding attempt, with all its stress and family politics and opportunities for things to go catastrophically wrong. The absence of bridesmaids and groomsmen meant there was no maid of honor position to fill, and no painful reminders of Ashley's betrayal, while the limited guest list ensured that Jennifer knew and trusted everyone present and didn't have to perform happiness for distant relatives or acquaintances who might be attending more for the party than to genuinely celebrate the couple's union. The day of Jennifer's second wedding was peaceful and joyful, in ways that her first wedding day had definitely not been. With morning yoga and a leisurely brunch before getting ready in a simple white dress she had purchased off the rack from a department store. No elaborate hair and makeup team or bridal suite drama or hours of preparation that had characterized the day she discovered Michael and Ashley's affair. Marcus had been completely transparent about his whereabouts and activities leading up to the ceremony, even suggesting they spend the morning together rather than following the traditional separation that Jennifer associated with her first wedding's disaster, demonstrating his understanding that what mattered was their commitment to honesty and partnership rather than adherence to conventions that no longer held meaning for Jennifer after her experience with betrayal. The vows that Jennifer and Marcus exchanged were personally written and focused on specific promises about communication, honesty, respect, and supporting each other's individual growth while also nurturing their partnership. Words that reflected the lessons Jennifer had learned through her painful experience with Michael and her determination to build a marriage characterized by genuine intimacy and mutual care rather than performance and hidden resentments that would eventually explode into betrayal and destruction. Marcus's vows included acknowledgement of the courage it took for Jennifer to trust again after being hurt so badly, promising to honor that trust through consistent actions that demonstrated his commitment every single day rather than taking her vulnerability for granted, or assuming that love alone would sustain their relationship without the hard work of honest communication and emotional presence. The small reception dinner was filled with laughter and heartfelt toasts from Jennifer's parents and siblings who expressed their happiness at seeing her genuinely joyful with a partner who clearly cherished and respected her, along with speeches from Marcus's children who were teenagers now, and spoke sweetly about welcoming Jennifer into their family and appreciating how she had respected their relationship with their father, while also building her own connection with them over the years of dating. The absence of elaborate traditions like bouquet tosses and garter removals and choreographed first dances meant the evening felt more like a celebration among friends than a performance for an audience, allowing Jennifer and Marcus to be fully present and enjoy their wedding day without the pressure and stress that had characterized Jennifer's first attempt at getting married. The honeymoon in New Zealand that Jennifer and Marcus took was adventurous and restorative, filled with hiking, exploring stunning landscapes, and long conversations about their marriage and the life they wanted to build, together with honesty about challenges they might face, and commitment to addressing problems directly rather than allowing resentments to fester or seeking emotional connection outside their marriage when things got difficult. The experiences they shared during those 2 weeks created positive memories associated with getting married that helped Jennifer finally close the painful chapter of her canceled wedding and betrayal by Michael and Ashley, replacing those memories with new ones characterized by joy, adventure, and genuine partnership with someone who had proven himself worthy of her trust through consistent actions over years rather than just promises and performances. The years that followed Jennifer's marriage to Marcus brought the normal challenges of blending families and navigating career changes and supporting each other through losses and disappointments. But the foundation of honesty and respect they had built allowed them to handle difficulties as partners rather than adversaries, communicating openly about needs and frustrations, and working together to find solutions that honored both individuals while also strengthening their marriage. Jennifer's relationship with Marcus's teenage children deepened as they matured into young adults and came to appreciate Jennifer's presence in their father's life and her efforts to support their relationship with him while never trying to replace their mother or demand loyalty that would have created painful conflicts for kids who were already managing the complexities of divorced parents and blended families. The birth of Jennifer and Marcus's daughter 3 years into their marriage brought immense joy to their family, and also triggered some unexpected emotional responses in Jennifer as she processed how different her life had become from what she had imagined during her engagement to Michael, recognizing that the betrayal that had felt like the end of her world had actually been the catalyst that pushed her toward a life and partnership infinitely better and healthier than what she would have had if Michael's affair had never been discovered and she had married someone fundamentally dishonest and selfish. The gratitude Jennifer felt for having escaped that marriage coexisted with lingering pain about Ashley's betrayal, as the loss of that 14-year friendship remained one of the most difficult aspects of the entire experience, representing not just a romantic relationship that ended, but also the death of a female friendship that Jennifer had believed would last their entire lives. Through all the normal transitions and changes that mark adult development, think about the moments in your own life when something you thought was devastating actually redirected you towards something better than you could have imagined. When a closed door forced you through an opening you hadn't noticed that led to opportunities and relationships you wouldn't have found if everything had gone according to your original plan. Jennifer's story shows us that betrayal and loss can coexist with growth and eventually even gratitude. That healing doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the pain wasn't real, but rather integrating those difficult experiences into a life story that includes both suffering and joy, both betrayal and trustworthy love that proves not everyone is like the people who hurt us. When have you looked back at a painful ending and recognized it as a beginning you didn't know you needed? How has surviving betrayal or loss changed your understanding of your own strength and your capacity to build happiness, even after devastating disappointment? The decision Jennifer made to share her story publicly through a blog post several years after her marriage to Marcus was motivated by conversations with friends and therapy clients who were struggling with their own experiences of betrayal and canceled weddings and the overwhelming shame that often accompanies these situations. Recognizing that her experience might help others feel less alone and might provide hope that healing and happiness were possible even after the kind of public humiliation and private devastation she had endured. The response to Jennifer's story was overwhelming, with hundreds of comments and emails from people sharing their own experiences with infidelity, betrayed friendships, canceled weddings, and the long, difficult process of rebuilding trust and self-esteem after someone you loved revealed themselves as unworthy of that love through actions that shattered your sense of reality and safety. The community that formed around Jennifer's blog became a source of support and validation for people navigating relationship betrayals and breakups, with Jennifer occasionally hosting online meetups and creating resources about recognizing red flags, setting boundaries, healing from betrayal, and eventually opening yourself to new relationships while protecting the wisdom and caution you developed through surviving infidelity and lies. The work of helping others process their own betrayals became unexpectedly therapeutic for Jennifer, allowing her to transform her painful experience into something meaningful that served a purpose beyond just her own healing, demonstrating that even our worst experiences can eventually become sources of compassion and insight that help us connect with others and contribute to communities of support and mutual understanding. The relationship that Jennifer maintained with her family throughout her healing and rebuilding remained strong and supportive, with her parents and siblings celebrating her marriage to Marcus and the birth of her daughter, while never mentioning Michael or Ashley, unless Jennifer brought them up, respecting her need to move forward without constant reminders of the betrayal, even as they remained available to listen if she ever needed to process lingering feelings or memories. The family gatherings that now included Marcus and his children created new traditions and dynamics that honored both families, while also reflecting the blended nature of their household, demonstrating that chosen family and commitment mattered more than biological connection or conventional family structures. The final contact that Jennifer had with either Michael or Ashley came approximately 5 years after the canceled wedding, when Ashley sent a long email attempting to apologize and explain her behavior, expressing regret and asking for forgiveness, while also revealing that she had been in therapy working on understanding why she had sabotaged Jennifer's wedding and betrayed their friendship in ways that suggested she had her own unresolved issues around envy, self-worth, and fear of abandonment that had nothing to do with Jennifer's character or actions. Jennifer read the email once and chose not to respond, recognizing that Ashley's need for forgiveness and closure was not Jennifer's responsibility to provide, and that she had already done her own healing work and built a beautiful life that no longer had space for people who had proven themselves untrustworthy and harmful, regardless of what personal growth or insights they might have achieved in the years since. Their betrayal. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with Jennifer through this entire journey, from devastating betrayal to genuine healing and happiness, with a partner who proved himself worthy of her trust through years of consistent, loving actions. If this story has touched you or reminded you of your own experiences with betrayal and healing, I hope you'll stay connected with our community, because we're all in this together, navigating the complicated realities of human relationships with as much grace and strength as we can manage. Please click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now, where you'll find more powerful stories about real people facing impossible situations and finding their way through to the other side. And I'll see you there, my friend.